Hey everybody, welcome back and welcome to our reintroduction video. Now for those of you guys that have been following the channel for a few years, you all know that there's been some pretty dramatic changes over the last few months. For those of you folks that are new to the channel, you're definitely going to want to hang out because we have got a lot of cool things that we're going to be talking about and doing, a lot of cool places and animals to look at. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, starting off, since this is the first video in this format, I thought the best thing to do was to just do a quick overview, kind of on current events, what's going on at the parks right now with the government shutdown. We don't know how long it's going to last, but we do have a couple weeks left before the parks, before the majority of Yellowstone closes down for the winter. So there's still time for folks to get out here. So we're just going to talk about some basics today, have some fun, and set the stage for things to come. Do you have a natural fascination with nature? Then come along with us as we explore some magnificent landscapes and captivating wildlife. My name is Tim and I'm a nature and wildlife photographer based here in Western Wyoming, also a guide at Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. You're invited to join us as we dive into the diverse and unique ecosystems of the greater Yellowstone area here on Intrepid Photography. So I'll give everybody just a really quick rundown on the parks. Not everybody's really familiar with them. Yellowstone National Park is just north of us here. We're in the Bridger Teton National Forest in Western Wyoming. And the forest runs up alongside Grand Teton and butts into the south side of Yellowstone. Now, Yellowstone was the first national park in the world. It's about 3,600 square miles, 2.2 million acres. It has over half of the geothermal features on the planet within its boundaries. And it butts into Grand Teton below it, which was made a national park later, about the 50s. And the main goal of that really was to secure some migratory area for the elk. Because in the wintertime, when the snow really hits, they'll migrate down and they'll hang out in the National Elk Refuge down there. Now, Yellowstone is known for a lot of things. It's known for its geysers and its hot springs, the most famous of which being Old Faithful. The most famous hot spring, of course, being Grand Prismatic. These are all just incredible features to be there and witness it erupting and just, be standing right next to it. And it's also known for its wildlife. We have got the largest genetically pure bison population here in Yellowstone. It's known for its wolf packs that run through Lamar and Hayden Valley. The elk population out here, the grizzly bears, they are all running wild, and it makes for a really complicated situation. I have to say, I'm really impressed with the fact that the National Park Service and the rangers and the wildlife management folks do such a good job of getting over 4 million people through these parks every year, and very rarely is there ever an incident. There are some, but as a general rule, it is considering Yellowstone is a place that will cook you and eat you, literally, they do a fantastic job of making it really safe for the general public to come through. There's a couple different loops of roads that run through it. We refer to them as the upper and lower loop. When we go out on tours, sometimes we'll do what's called a grand loop, where we actually circumnavigate the entire park. Makes for some long days. Like I said, it's a very, very big place, and there's a lot to see out here. But that being said, one of the things that we're running into right now, of course, is we've got the government shutdown. Now that does a couple things. We still have park rangers out here. There are still some working rangers in the park, which is a very good thing. A lot of the wildlife management folks have been out right now. And that proves to be kind of troublesome sometimes because, tourists really need to be guided and supervised. Everybody's heard the stories about people getting tossed by the bison and things like that because they're getting too close. And it's, for the most part, people have been doing really good. Now, granted, the number of tourists coming through here has gone down. Pretty much our main tour season is coming to an end, and we're just kind of treading water right now, waiting for the winter season to open up. But just for folks that are planning on coming out here, maybe you're coming out here next year, maybe you're going to come out and try and catch these last couple weeks before, before everything starts to really close down for the winter. And as it stands now, some of the shops, some of the gas stations, things like that have been closing down already. Now, one interesting fact about Yellowstone specifically is I researched it not too long ago. If you add up all of the surface area of the roads, the boardwalks, the parking areas, you come up to about 0.2% of the total land area of the park itself. There is a lot of wild space out here. There is a lot of habitat for apex predators and prey. And, you can drive every road, walk every boardwalk, and go everywhere. And there's still 99.8% of the park that you haven't dropped a foot on. It is a very impressively large place. And the diversity of the different ecosystems out here is really, really interesting. And we're going to get into all of that stuff down the road in future videos. Today, I wanted to, for anybody that's planning on coming out here in the next couple weeks, just kind of talk about a couple basic things that we all do out here in order to, be respectful of the other visitors to the park, and of course, keep ourselves safe from being injured by the animals. And we don't want to do any harm and impede them any more than is absolutely necessary to get through as well. So first and foremost, what a lot of folks and this is all over the internet, you see the videos of the people getting tossed by the bison and stuff like that. There is some distance limitations, and you're actually legally required to maintain these distances. From the wolves and the bears, the predators, you're legally required to be 100 yards away from them, or more. If a ranger comes out and you're sitting there 50 yards from a bear taking pictures, they can actually cite you for a wildlife violation for being in too close of a proximity to a predator like that. And when we're talking elk and bison, things of that nature, it's 25 yards. Now, those distances are just the bare minimum standards. And there's a couple things that I don't hear people talk about that I really want to bring to everybody's attention. So we're going to start with that distance on the bears. Now it can be a little bit misleading. They say that you've got to stay 100 yards away from that bear. Here's the thing, especially here lately, because they're in their hyperphagia stage where they are just eating anything they can get their teeth on, preparing themselves for hibernation. Something to think about with the grizzly bears, they can run about 35 miles an hour. And if you do the math on it, that means they're going to clear 100 yards in about 6 seconds. Now, a human being in 6 seconds can walk about 10 yards. So you've got to figure, if you're out in the field and for some reason that grizzly, you catch his eye, he decides to come after you, you can be 100 yards away from him. But if you're also 50 yards away from your vehicle, that bear can get to you before you can get to your vehicle. Now, I say all of that because it's just something to keep in mind. We don't have grizzlies coming down and attacking lines of cars or anything like that. It's just one of those things, particularly if you're out by yourself or if you're in a small group, you're off in the backcountry or something like that. That 100 yards may not be enough. Now, when we talk about the distances from the wildlife, like I said, 4 million people plus come through the park. They drive the roads, they go see the main sites and stuff like that. You'll have animals crossing the road, coming up close to the road. And I can't even think of the last real incident that, somebody on the beaten path has had. Now, we'll go into a lot more detail in future videos. And we're talking about, distances from the wildlife and things to prepare, depending on whether you're going to be on the roads in your vehicle, out on hiking trails, or whether you're really diving out into the backcountry. They're really important things to talk about. It wasn't too long ago, a few weeks ago, we just had somebody who was out hiking by themselves get mauled by a bear. Took some injuries before he was able to get his bear spray out, and, get the animal pushed off of him. So, there'll be specific videos in the future where we're talking about, bear defense, things like that. But just kind of keep in mind, when you're out here, you got to stay 100 yards away from the bears and wolves. You got to stay 25 yards away from the bison, the elk, all the other wildlife out here, the antelopes, because they will ticket you for it. Now, it's not quite so bad now because the volume of traffic is down, but one thing that is a really big problem out here, and the rangers and the wildlife folks have always got to intervene, is you'll see a lot of people who are driving down the road, they see a bear, bison, whatever it is, off the side of the road, and they just stop right in the middle of the road and stop traffic behind them so that they can stop and get their pictures. Now, that's something that they can ticket you for. They can ticket you for, obstructing the roadway, stuff like that. They typically don't, but it's good practice, the best practice. You'll see a lot of people, they'll slow down a little bit so they can get pictures. Okay, fine. Sometimes it's not possible to pull over. But if you're going to stop and observe the wildlife, look at any of the scenery, get pictures, pull off the side of the road. Make sure that all of your wheels are on the right side of the white line, so that way, people can get around you. You can just sit there in peace, watch the animals as long as you want to, because you've got to understand, a lot of my tours, when I'm doing grand loops out here, we're talking at least 12 hours, and for somebody that has 1-2 days or something like that out here in the park, they've got to be able to get to what it is that they want to see. If you're constantly sitting in traffic because people want to just stop in the middle of the road, take pictures, you're really doing a disservice to everybody else behind you that's just trying to get through the park and see everything in the limited time that they've got. So if you're stopping to take pictures, stuff like that, make sure you're pulling off the side of the road. Especially right now, there's not as many rangers running around as there usually is. There's not a lot of other folks out here that can help manage traffic. So just really be considerate with that. And again, we're looking at a couple weeks now before we go into the winter shutdown of everything up in Yellowstone, except for the road between Garner and Cook City, Montana. It goes from Mammoth up through Lamar Valley. That's going to be a really fun place to, go out and, hopefully catch some wolves and some wildlife out there in the snow this winter. That part will be open. The rest of the park, a lot of it you can access, but it's got to be guided. You've got to have the permits and the appropriate vehicles and things like that. A lot of Grand Teton, just south of there, you can still access a lot of it. There's a couple roads that they do close down in the wintertime, but they've got the National Elk Refuge out there too. So there's still things to see and do out here in the wintertime. Just kind of depends on how devoted you are, because it does get kind of cold and we do get quite a bit of snow out here. But if you can work through that, there's going to be some really fantastic opportunities out here this winter. So, like I said, just a really quick introductory video just to hit a couple points real quick. By all means, guys, get down in the comments. As we're producing content here, there's going to be, an opportunity to talk about everything. We're going to do some, species-specific stuff on wildlife. We'll do some photography stuff. We'll talk about photography gear and settings and all of that stuff that we need to really be able to capture images of the things that we see out here the best way we possibly can. And we're also going to be talking about conservation issues. One thing about this area is it can be a little tinderbox, because you've got, in the greater Yellowstone area, you've got, of course, the environmentalists, the conservationists. You've also got the ranchers and the hunters. And these groups of people don't always see eye to eye all the time. There can be a lot of tension. There can be a lot of controversy around some of this stuff. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to tackle some of these issues in really the most unbiased manner possible. Over the course of the next few months, I want to sit down and talk with ranchers, get a rancher on camera, have them explain, what are your concerns? What's going on? What do you deal with? Get some environmentalists on, hear that side of the story, talk with some hunters, some guys that are really up to speed on the hunting laws and things like that, so we can really get a good realistic, unvarnished, image of the whole situation out here. Because like I said, once you get out here in the area and you start talking with folks, there are a lot of different opinions, and they can get pretty heated sometimes. So we're just going to try and present the facts and things like that as we get down the road with all of that. Just have the discussions. Maybe we'll get lucky and some folks may find some common ground that they didn't know they had. Another thing that I'm doing is I've got my volunteer applications in for both the Raptor Center and wildlife management out here. So as those things go through and I get to spend some time with them, that'll be more content that we'll be able to bring out. We'll sit down, have some interviews with some rangers, some wildlife management folks that can go into a lot more detail than I can, about concerns they're having with the wildlife, current events, stuff like that. And also with the Raptor Center, there is a lot of environmental concerns when we're talking about raptor rescues, as far as things that we can do to, mitigate the poisoning of birds, securing their habitats and just helping these animals thrive in conditions that aren't always ideal. Winters out here get pretty rough. Even the cutthroat trout population out here at Yellowstone is diminished because of an invasive species of fish, and that all goes up the food chain. So there's all kinds of things to talk about. There's going to be no shortage of videos to make, and by all means, jump down in the comments. Let me know what questions you've got, things that you'd like to see specifically. We're going to have times where we go on and just start throwing out some wildlife photography, some of the awesome images that we capture out there in the park when we're out there day to day, because when I'm not out there giving tours of the parks, I'm out there on my own. A lot of my off days are spent in the parks, just going out, getting away from the crowds and seeing what we can catch. So like I said, guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Get subscribed to the channel, hang out. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff. And for those of you guys that have been hanging with the channel for a few years and you've been waiting for the first Yellowstone video, we're here. We're going to run with it. And, you guys have been great. I've got some great friends out there in the reptile community. And a lot of you guys have followed me right along to this endeavor. And we love all of you. So you guys have an outstanding day. And we will see you next time on Intrepid Photography. You guys have a great day.